And we understood that in the Abrahamic covenant, God basically decreed that man was to have dominion, rule, and reign over all things when he set them in the Garden of Eden. Of course, man failed with Satan's help a little bit. So God pronounced judgment on Satan in Genesis, right? In Genesis 3:15, we see God's pronouncement that he's going to send a seed through, not just a seed, the seed, through the woman to crush your head, meaning Satan's head, okay? Now, Satan knows God's next move. God's next move is that he's going to send a seed through a woman, hence a human being, right, to crush his head. So now, Satan has to go back to the drawing board, if you will, and he has to figure out what's my next move, what is my defensive move to this offensive move. Well, of course, it's to prevent the seed from coming. And so he proceeds in an attempt to infect pretty much the whole human race with demonic possession. Now, what was God's answer to that? Water, right? He sent a flood. And he baptized the whole entire earth, and he got it entirely cleaned up. That was God's response. And through that flood, there was a remnant of people that were saved. 8, Noah's family. And to them was promised the Noahic covenant. It was to all of mankind that this promise was made. It wasn't with conditions, it was unconditional, and it was all the terms were on God's side. And he promised, God did, to never flood the earth again with water, that there would always be the different seasons. There would be a planting time and a harvest time, and so forth, until, as long as man remained on earth to the end of time. And he put a rainbow in the sky as the sign of the covenant to remind himself, I will remember when I see the rainbow. And God has kept that promise, okay? There is enough food in the world. There shouldn't be starvation anywhere in the world. The starvation problem is not on God's side, it is on man's side. There's more than enough food. We have evil leaders that don't allow food to get into the people, is what it is. But there is more than enough food. Okay. Now, this brings us up to, so we've got the Abrahamic covenant, we've got the Noahic covenant, which now brings us to the Abrahamic covenant today. Okay? Now, all subsequent covenants to the Abrahamic covenant arose out of this one that we're studying today. The rest of the covenants in the Bible are progressive, unfolding. It's an unfolding of today's covenant, the Abrahamic covenant. Okay? And it's so unbelievably important. But before we get exactly to the covenant, let's go ahead and let's cover what happened basically after the flood of Noah. If you could go to Genesis 9 is where we're going to begin. Genesis 9, starting with verse 20. Yeah. Verse what? 20. Again, I'm reading out of the NLT, New Living Translation. Okay. All right, so Genesis 9, starting in verse 20, and it says this. After the flood, Noah began to cultivate the ground, and he planted a vineyard. One day he drank some wine he had made, and he became drunk and lay naked inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw that his father was naked and went outside and told his brothers. Then Shem and Japheth took a robe, held it over their shoulders, and backed into the tent to cover their father. As they did this, they looked the other way, so they would not see him naked. When Noah woke up from his stupor, he learned what Ham, his youngest son, had done. Then he cursed Canaan, the son of Ham. May Canaan be cursed. May he be the lowest of servants to his relatives. Then Noah said, May the Lord, the God of Shem, be blessed, and may Canaan be his servant. May God expand the territory of Japheth. May Japheth share the prosperity of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. So let's just talk about this narrative really quickly. Ham exposed Noah's sin. Ham's two brothers, Shem and Japheth, covered Noah's sin. You know, in Proverbs, it says that hatred stirs up conflict, but love covers all wrongs. That doesn't mean that love cleanses all wrong. It doesn't mean that love condones all wrong and that love ignores all wrong. It just covers it, okay? Now, Noah, I want you to notice in this passage that we just read about his 3 boys, Noah didn't curse Ham, the one who had exposed him. It was the son Ham that exposed Noah. But Noah actually had foresight as to what Ham's iniquity would produce. And Ham's 4th son's name is Canaan. Okay? Now, Canaan. Have you guys heard of the Canaanites? Mm-hmm. The Canaanites came from Canaan, which is Ham's son. Okay? And so also I want you to notice, in fact, let's just look at that really quick. Go to chapter 10 really quick, and let's look at verse 6. The descendants of Ham were, so you've got Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. See, do you see that? The 4 sons of Ham right there? Now go down to verse 15. And notice what it says. Canaan's oldest son was Sidon, the ancestor of the Sidonians. Canaan was also the ancestor of the Hittites, Jebusites, Amorites, Girgashites, Hivites, Arkites, Sinites, Arvadites, all the ites. The Canaanite clans eventually spread out, and the territory of Canaan extended from Sidon in the north to Gerar and Gaza in the south, and is east as far as Sodom and Gomorrah, which is around the Dead Sea, and Admah and Zeboim near Lasha. So if you know that territory in your mind's eye on a map, that's basically the territory of Israel, is what it is. But all of Canaan's descendants, they basically settled there, and they were all the ites. They were clans, huge amounts of clans with very prolific, and they were very large, okay? That is the heritage of Ham. Now, I want you also to notice in that passage that we had just read that notice that Noah didn't bless Shem. He blessed the Lord of Shem. Isn't that interesting? He said, may the Lord, the God of Shem, be blessed. And may Canaan be his servant. Whose servant? The Lord's servant, ultimately. So he was acknowledging the Lord, okay? All right, that's just a little bit of what was happening after the flood. Now, let's go on to chapter 11 of Genesis 9, okay? Let's read the first 9 verses. It's about the Tower of Babel, okay? All right. At one time, all the people of the world spoke the same language and used the same words. And as the people migrated to the east, they found a plain in the land of Babylonia and settled there. Now, right there, that's in opposition to what God has said to do when they got out. Oh, sorry, the 11th chapter. 11th, sorry. Mm-hmm. This is totally in opposition of what God told man to do when he got out of the ark. He was to fill the earth, and he was to multiply. In other words, spread out. All right? But they all started to congregate together in this one area of verse 1 of 11. All right, so now I'm starting in verse 3 of chapter 11. They began saying to each other, let's make bricks and harden them with fire. In this region, the bricks were used instead of stone, and tar was used for mortar. And then they said, come, let's build a great city for ourselves with a tower that reaches into the sky. This will make us famous and keep us from being scattered all over the world. And yet God had said, fill the earth. He didn't say to remain congregated in one area. Okay, so already it's in direct violation of what God has said. All right. But the Lord came down to look at the city and the tower that the people were building. Look, he said, the people are united and they all speak the same language. After this, nothing they set out to do will be impossible for them. Come, let's go down and confuse the people with different languages. Then they won't be able to understand each other. In that way, the Lord scattered them all over the world, and they stopped building the city. That is why the city was called Babel, because that is where the Lord confused the people with different languages. In this way, he scattered them all over the world. He told them to fill the earth. They didn't. He made sure it got done. Right? How did he do it? Through languages. Okay? So the Tower of Babel is the origin of languages. Okay? Of the whole entire world. It was a curse. It brought confusion, and it forced the people to spread out, okay? And God, like I said, He's going to have His way. His will get done, and will be accomplished in His way. Now, I will tell you this. This particular curse that happened with the Tower of Babel, it is going to get reversed in the future. If you stick with this class, you'll see where it gets reversed. And it's in our past, not in our future. Okay, that's just a little side note. All right, so let's see. We now have a line. Let me just make a line like this. We've got the line, basically, from Adam. Remember Cain and Abel, you had that whole thing. Seth was a replacement child, right, to Abel. So we've got Adam, Seth, Noah, Shem, and Abraham. We've got Adam to Seth, okay, to Noah, to Shem, to today. What I'm teaching is terrible. To Abraham. There we go. I'll just put Abe. That's the line. This is Seth. There's Adam and Noah. This is that holy line, the line that is seeking after God. All right? Now, let me just recap exactly what has happened, okay? From the very creation of Adam, right here, we'll just say that's Adam right here, up until that ridiculous looking thing is the Tower of Babel, okay? From the creation of Adam to the Tower of Abel, that's Genesis 1 through 11, respectively. Mankind was one race. All of mankind, there was only one race speaking one language. That's just what it was. The events recorded in Genesis 11 provide us the background for all of a sudden, at the Tower of Babel, for the division of mankind into different nations. And that's why I have from there nations. We've got all of mankind. He's just one type of ethnicity up until the Tower of Babel. Now he's still one ethnicity, but now out of that one ethnicity of man becomes many, many nations. Why? Because different languages marks out different nations. Okay? Now, out of all of these nations, these many, many nations, God chose a man for himself. And from this man, Abraham, that's him right there, Abraham, God would bring forth a chosen nation. What nation would that be? Israel. That's right. Why? Well, he would choose a nation out of all the nations. He would choose a nation for his own purposes. So you see, in the Old Testament, at the very, very beginning of the Old Testament, there is only one ethnic race of man, only one ethnicity. And there's only one nation at the beginning. Why? Because they all spoke the same language. Now, what will we label that as? Gentiles. Now, are you all with me at that point? You understand that? Okay, good. All right, now, then came many nations due to the many languages, but still it was one ethnic race. What was that one ethnic race? Well, that one ethnic race was all Gentiles, or as the Bible sometimes refers to as the nations. The nations, the Gentiles. They're interchangeable. The nations, the Gentiles. Okay? All right. But then came Abraham, the man God chose to all